So while yesterday was all doom and gloom for Republicans because of the redistricting in Virginia, today may be a day that the celebrations stop after voters narrowly backed a redistricting proposal that would eliminate all of the Commonwealth's Republicans in Congress except for one. A state judge stepped in, halted certification of the results because the misleading language in the wording of the measure.
So the outcome now leaves the future of Virginia's congressional map uncertain as the case heads into further legal review. For more on all this, we're joined now by our senior judicial analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano. So on our show yesterday, you said the language used in this was misleading. We just heard from Congressman Addison McDowell. He said it was very confusing. What do you make of this in this ruling?
The judge said it was very confusing. Yeah. I mean, as Mark pointed out when we discussed this yesterday, the language in the referendum itself was a piece of propaganda, which you rarely see and you're not supposed to see in a voting booth. But here's the issue. That language should have been challenged before the vote, so that it could have been corrected. By waiting until after the vote, I think this is the way the Virginia Supreme Court will rule. The challengers sat on their rights. They waited too long. Now, this particular judge, who in my opinion did the right thing, was restrained by the Supreme Court once before when he tried to prevent the Democrats from doing this by legislation. He said, you can't do it by legislation. The Supreme Court said, let them do it however they want. They decided to do it by referendum. But this is more than a referendum. It's a constitutional amendment. It's almost unheard of for the judicial branch to stop the people from amending their constitution. That's one way to look at it.
Yeah.
The other way to look at it is it was blatantly partisan. It was overwhelmingly partisan. It was promoted and intended to deny a good section of Virginia voters their right to be represented in the Congress, which is a constitutional right. Who's going to resolve this? The Supreme Court of Virginia. And when are they going to resolve it? They better do it soon, because nominating petitions are due and a primary is coming up.
So is that another way around this? The Supreme Court, which leans slightly conservative in Virginia, could just take their time and at least avoid this issue during the 2026 midterm cycle if they let this play out. And then you have to worry about it for the next elections after that.
That would be a dereliction of their duty, in my view. They need to rule on this. They either need to say the challengers waited too long. The judge is right, but this should have been resolved before the election, or this is so partisan we're going to negate it. That's a big deal for the Supreme Court to negate a popularly enacted amendment to the state constitution. But it's also a big deal for the politicians to trick voters into voting for something they didn't think they were voting for.
So I want to shift gears to a New York Times report that's out saying that the FBI investigated whether one of its reporters, Elizabeth Williamson, violated laws against stalking after she wrote a story nearly 2 months ago about how federal agents had been assigned to protect and give rides to FBI Director Kash Patel's girlfriend. So at what point does a journalism investigation cross those lines into allegations of stalking?
The stalking statute is very clear. It requires an intent to harm, and the exception to that is free speech. So in my view, the FBI was profoundly wrong to investigate this reporter. Reporters should not hesitate to do investigative journalism about people in the government for fear they're going to be investigated by the FBI. The FBI can't investigate whoever it wants. It has to have what's called articulable suspicion. They have to be able to articulate what the crime is. She was aggressive in her reporting. Okay, good reporters, we know them, are aggressive in their reporting. That doesn't make them criminals. That doesn't give the FBI the opportunity to investigate. Does the public have the right to know that the FBI director was using government assets to transport his girlfriend? Yes, it doesn't mean it's wrong, but the public has the right to know. Fortunately, saner heads in the DOJ prevailed and said, thank you for this investigation. We're not going to go anywhere with it. So it's over with. But there's the potential chilling effect. There's the potential for other investigative reporters saying, do I really want to go through this? Maybe I shouldn't do this story. They shouldn't have that hesitation, because the Supreme Court has ruled the press, that's us, are the eyes and ears of the public when examining the government.